and I have with me Mr. Rahul Roshan, analyst at Steelmint, who will be co-hosting this webinar with me. Welcome, Rahul.
Hello, ma'am.
We also have with us two industry experts who will be sharing their views on the topic today. Our first panelist is Mr. Sripal Jain, Chairman, Oswal Group. Welcome, sir.
Hi.
Hi. Our second panelist is Mr. R.P. Patil, General Manager, Marketing at MOIL. Welcome, sir. India's manganese ore production increased by about 30% to 1.8 million tons during April to October 2023. The higher ore production was definitely encouraged by the higher crude steel output and the demand. On the other hand, imports for manganese ore into India rose nearly 10% during April to October versus the same period last year. Of course, the import volumes rose as the prices fell to over 3.5 years low in September 2023. Before we begin the panel discussion, I now invite Rahul to give a brief overview on the Indian manganese ore market in 2023. Over to you, Rahul.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello, everyone. So before we moving ahead with the presentation, let me give you a brief overview of Steelmint. With over 600 price assessment, 500 data sets, Steelmint has emerged as a leading market intelligence firm over the last decade. Ma'am, next slide. So first, we'll talk about the how did India's manganese alloys market perform in April to October 2023. Manganese alloys demand is always a function of a crude steel production and demand. India's crude steel production was seen up 12.3% in April to October 2023 to around 8 million tons against the 71 million tons recorded in the corresponding period last fiscal during April to October year 2022. Production was up on account of the demand pull from domestic end users industries. Ma'am, next slide. So moving on to the second slide, that is on Indian manganese ore production year on year, that has seen increase of. So domestic manganese ore output grew 30% to 1.8 million tons in April to October 2023, up from 1.4 million tons in the previous fiscal year. Higher ore production was added by increase in crude steel production and demand in the first half of the year, which were both up 13% and 15% respectively. So coming to the next slide, which is on import of manganese ore. South Africa was the most preferable grade to the Indian manganese ore during that time. So import of manganese ore into India rose nearly 10% to over 3.8 million ton compared to 2.81 million ton in the same period last fiscal year. Imports rose as the price fell to their last half year lows in the September 2023. For instance, imported manganese grade, that is 37%, price fell 20% in the period under review to an average of $143 per ton CNF India compared to $179 per ton in the same period last fiscal. Ma'am, next slide. So coming to the grade-wise manganese ore import, which will see the trend of from FY22 to FY24, which we have shown in the graph. So imports of high-grade Australian manganese ore, that is manganese grade 46%, used generally in the manufacturing of high-grade manganese alloys, and which is mostly usable in Vizag hub, which saw a 56% decrease during this fiscal year. Producers reduced production due to lack of international demand and European producer purchases, and willingness to accept higher offer for manganese alloys for the Indian products. However, it may be noted the decrease in imports of Australian grade was balanced out by an increase in South African grade 29% year on year to around 1.7 million ton, and Gabonese manganese ore imports rose by 13% year on year to around 0.97 million ton, which helped to keep the overall import increase 10% year on year. So coming to the next slide, we'll talk about the price trend, which is offered from last 3 years, which we have seen in the graph. So price of imported manganese ore has been declined since February this year on account of falling manganese production in India as well as in China as well. Prices of 37 grade manganese ore lumps from South Africa is up to $3.75 per DMTU in September from $3.7 per DMTU, which was lowest in the 3.5 year. But average price in April to August 2023 were at $3.93 per DMTU against $5 per DMTU in the same period in year 2022. That's all I had to share from my side. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thanks, Rahul, for that quick and brief overview on the Indian manganese ore market and the performance in 2023 so far. Now it's time to hear the views from our esteemed panelists and the industry experts who have joined us in this panel. A note for the audience that anyone who wishes to ask a question may please share them in the chat box below. And this panel discussion will again be divided into 4 segments of manganese ore production, imports, demand, and prices. So let's begin with the first segment on the manganese ore production. My first question is for Mr. Patil, that we have seen India's manganese ore production to have increased by about 30% on YOY basis during April to October. So what is your outlook on the entire fiscal of FY24?
Madam, as such, last year we have produced around 2.82 billion tons of manganese in India, domestic production. Out of these, around 1.3 billion tons produced by MOIL and around 1.5 billion tons produced by other than MOIL. See, suppose if you go increase our production from 1.3 billion to 1.8 million tons during this financial year, and suppose other producers than oil give the same production, then around 3.3 million ton will be production, and it will be around 20% increase of manganese ore production in domestic market.
Thank you so much, sir. So I think you have already given the answer for my next question, that what is MOIL's guidance for this fiscal year. Sir, any guidance that you have set for 2030 by any chance for a longer term perspective?
Yes, madam. Longer term perspective means this year we are planning for 1.8 million ton, next year 2.2 million ton, and by 2030 we will go by 3.5 million ton.
Just a follow-up question, sir. So we are expecting the production increase from the existing mines, or there are some new mines that we are going to have production from?
We are planning existing mines outside of states and also increasing our EC limits, which will help us to increase our productions.
So my next question is from Sripal sir. Sir, we have recently heard about few silicomanganese players in central and southern India undertaking maintenance shutdown. So is it due to less viability of price given the current production cost or any other reason?
Hi, good afternoon to all. The reason for reduction of production in basically southern part of India and central part of India is basically, the first primary reason is very low prices of alloy in the market. Secondly, the high power cost in southern states. The power cost compared to West Bengal and Chhattisgarh region, prominently there are 3 regions which produce manganese alloys. One is central part of India, Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh, and West Bengal. So the West Bengal and Chhattisgarh, the power tariffs are quite favorable for production of silicomanganese or any ferroalloy. The higher costs of power and lower cost of alloy has forced people to cut back the production, and lesser demand compared to the market scenario. The production in India for manganese alloys is approximately in the range of 3.5 to 3.8 million ton approx. The demand, and out of that 40 to 45% are being exported. So there is a muted demand on export front. The exports have been reduced. So the predominantly the southern states market is exports. The majority of their production goes to exports. So that is one of the reasons for curtailing their production.
Thank you so much, sir. And
Right.
yes, sir.
Yeah, Rahul, you have some follow-up question from sir?
Sir, like the prices of manganese ore also higher grade has been not so much changes if we compare with the last year. So, do we see any further improvement in demand for the higher manganese grade? Like
Higher grade of manganese ore.
yes, sir, that is 44% and 46%. Generally, we are import from Australia and Gabon.
Firstly, the Australian grades have come down. They are now in the range of 43, and Gabonese ore is in the range of 44 plus. So both prices are also under pressure. They have also come down for next December, January. The prices declared are in the range of $4.15, $4.20. It should be in the range of that. So prices for high grade are also in pressure. Manganese ore prices are also coming down. That's not because of lesser demand from India, but lesser demand from across the globe. The main market, the majority consumer is China, and China is consuming less. So there is a quite a bit of pressure on prices to all the miners exporting manganese ore. So prices, yes, there is a price pressure on high.
Thank you, sir. Over to you, ma'am.
Right. So now we enter into the second segment of the panel discussion, that is on the manganese ore imports. So of course, majority of the questions will be for Sripal sir. My first question to you, sir, is about that imports of manganese ore have risen by about 10% during April to October versus the corresponding period of last year. So what is your outlook for the entire fiscal till March 24?
I think India imported in last year about 5.8 to 6 million tons of manganese ore. That was the data what I come across. So this year also India will be importing around same amount of imported manganese ore. And in fact, it may rise a little bit because as there are, as Rahul pointed out, that there are few stoppages of production in southern part of India and central part of India, but new capacities have also been added. The new capacities added is from DRI producers, the producers who produce sponge iron along with the co-generation of power-based heat recovery. They have put up new furnaces for production of ferroalloys. So, in short, it is being replaced, we can say. The volume of production is almost similar, but a small percentage has been reduced. So the imported manganese ore imports will remain almost similar to last year, or maybe 2-3% reduction in imports. So whatever cutbacks we see in imports will be in the last quarter. That's from Jan March. India's last quarter, first quarter of others.
Sir, in the same line, I have one question for Sripal sir. Imported manganese ore fell to their 3.5 year lows in September 23. What is your outlook for Jan to March 24?
See, there are two, three reasons to justify this, that prices may further fall down. Number one is the demand from China is muted, but still consumption is happening. People are buying. But yes, there may be at some few cents here and there they are buying. But on the other hand, the freights, ocean freights have increased drastically in last 1 month due to the Panama Canal and Suez Canal issue. The draft in Panama Canal and Suez Canal are reduced. and the holding times of the vessels in this passage has increased to 10 to 12 days, which was earlier 2 days, 1.5. So that has put a lot of pressure on ocean freight. If ocean freight normalizes in next 1 or 2 months, then prices should come down. May come down by another 10-15 cents. But drastically, we don't expect the prices to fall much further from here. If at all it is happening, maybe 2%, 3% from.
Right, right. And sir, just a follow-up question. So the prices across the grades are likely to, remain stable, or may ease down post freight issue is resolved, or you find some variation in the prices for high-grade manganese ore being supported.
In my personal opinion, I don't think so.
All right. Sir, like we have been hearing that South 32 has kept the manganese ore production guidance unchanged, but do you foresee any short supply globally, given we were reading about some planned maintenance shutdown at their end, which is scheduled during December to March 2024?
Guidance will be the same in production. There won't be any disruption in any supplies or production from either South 32. We don't foresee any reason for they being shifting short. Or we have not heard, because already their offers are out in market for January shipments, and they have a long-term contract. So I think they will perform. Nothing has been heard that they will be shipping short due to maintenance or something.
In the same line, I have a question for Patil sir. Like the major producer from overseas, they are reducing production and they have a plant maintenance. So, sir, is this an opportunity for MOIL to increase the coverage in domestic? Patil sir, sir, like a major producer like South 32 is on maintenance for the next 3 months or 4 months. So in this opportunity, we are looking for the domestic, as a MOIL is mostly serving to the domestic market, a major producer in domestic. So is it opportunity for MOIL to cover this gap?
Naturally, so domestic demand will be there. We are doing it. Steel is doing well. Then production of alloys is doing well. In India, we are doing at same level. Export is at same level.
Yes.
Means consumption is increasing, and we are meeting them. And we don't find some there is problem. Suppose input is also increased compared to last year. So our demand will be there. I think we'll do. What we'll produce, we'll sell it.
Thank you, sir. And my next question is from Sripal sir. A high-grade manganese ore import from Australia has almost down by 15% from last year. And what is your opinion on this trend, or what factors impacting high-grade manganese ore? Or do we have any high-grade manganese alloys demand has been reduced in overseas market? Or any other competitor in the market, they are serving to the same material in a lower price? So what's your opinion on this?
See, as far as high-grade manganese ore is concerned, the reduction of capacity from South 32 is being replaced by Gabonese aramid. So they have increased their production guidance from 7.7 million ton to 10 million tons in coming 2 years. So they are increasing their high-grade production. So I don't foresee any shortage of high-grade in coming years. So it will be, if it all South 32 is unable to cater, then it will be replaced by aramid, easy to replace. But on a high-grade alloys, so now as if you see the India is increasing steel production, Indian steel production increased, and probably 10% increase in steel production, 10% more alloy consumption in it. But at the same time, after in the past 1.5 years, we added new capacities on production of alloys. So the alloys production is much bigger than capacity consumption of steel. So there is an you can say oversupply of manganese alloys. And at the same time, internationally, if you see, there is a contraction of steel production even in Japan, even in China has reduced 10 to 15% of their steel production. US has reduced. Few plants in Mexico, South Africa have been closed. So those consumption market, which predominantly were sold by either Malaysians or South Africans and Australian Genco, they are looking at other markets and avenues to supply. So the Indian predominantly India's market has got a challenge from those suppliers also, and so the price pressure.
Thank you, sir. Sir, do you see any geopolitical factor or macroeconomic factor to impact the global manganese ore supplies in the near term? Mr. Jain?
I don't see any geopolitical factor being played because the disruption what was to happen about 1.5 years back was from Ukraine-Russia war. Because Ukraine is also a predominantly a big player in manganese alloy, which produces about 800, 900,000 tons of manganese alloy. So that has been factored in and that is replaced. So their vessel supply has already been replaced by other players from Malaysia, India, and South Africa. So I don't see any disruption coming on manganese ore from any of the existing suppliers or supplying countries.
All right. Moving on to the next segment of demand. So, as we have been hearing about Indian steel government very bullish about achieving 300 million tons of crude steel capacity by 2030 from say current levels of 165, 170 million tons. So, Mr. Patil, what is your outlook on India's manganese ore demand overall for 2030?
See, for the production of the capacity will be 300 million ton, or we are expecting the production of crude steel of around 255 million ton. For that purpose, our requirement of manganese ore will be around 11 million ton at that time. For that purpose, we are gearing up. Oil is also increasing its production around, and there will be always some short gap will be there, but by doing domestically, everybody should come and means to meet the 11 million ton target of demand. We have to gear up, and accordingly, oil is also gearing up, and domestic producers also gearing up. But there will be some shortage of material demand that will be met through input.
Mr. Jain, any comments from you on this?
Already for 255 million ton, if you compare the current production of our manganese ore, I think it covers, we are already with the capacity of 80-90% we can serve. So we produce about 3.6, 3.8 million ton of manganese alloy. And I think this is with a capacity utilization of about 70-75% capacity utilization of the installed capacities of manganese alloy production. So the production installed capacity utilization is 70-75%. We produce about 3.6, 3.8 million ton. So from as far as we understand, I understand personally that there will not be any shortage of manganese alloys for the production of 255 million tons of steel by 2030.
Right. Just a follow-up question, sir. We have been hearing about Indian government bringing in some of the blocks for auctions. So, do you see them turning into operations very soon, or some clearances and all would take some time? Maybe first, Mr. Jain can add up to this question.
I think manganese or any mining block opening due to clearances and other issues, it's a long process. It takes at least 3 years, 2 years. And again, Indian manganese ore mining is basically a pocket mining, where a single mine, I don't see produces more than 200,000 or 150,000 tons. So they are small blocks, but yes, we have quite a good resource in India, but to explore it and bring it into operation, it will take some time. That's my personal opinion.
Right. Mr. Patil, as you mentioned that MOIL is also considering some of the mines exploration in some other states. So are you also looking forward for acquiring some mines in the block auctions?
Yes, we are participating and 100% as and when we get chance, we'll explore it.
Over to you, Rahul.
Thank you, ma'am. So we are moving on to the next segment, that is of manganese alloys export. So this question is common for Sanjan sir and Patil sir for you. The cost of raw material is rising nowadays. Are manganese alloys producers looking into alternative energy sources or measures to lessen their reliance on conventional power and mitigate cost pressure?
So yes, people are surely looking for alternate energy, green energy, and a lot of producers are in negotiations, or I can say preliminary discussions with solar or solar wind cogeneration companies, but nothing has yet been formalized. But as per CBAM, which is to come in force from 26. As of now, it stands for 26. Maybe there may be extension, I don't know. So after that, the exports of manganese alloys from India will become tough. So if people want to be in the export play, or they have to be selling into those markets, they have to work on this model to use green energy and reduce CO2 emissions.
So, sir, in the same line, just I want to add one more question. Like that you have mentioned CBAM. Will it affect the production volume in India? Like mostly into European countries, they buy higher degree of manganese alloys from India. So will the volume it will reduce, or that will be a problem for the manufacturer? Now you.
See, there will be penalties. So if after that, if the producer who is going to export, if he is not compliant with the CBAM norms of CO2 emissions, then he'll have to buy carbon credits or some mechanism which they are working out. So ultimately his realization reduces. So to get a better realization, he'll work for an alternate energy. And today, for example, if you take the cost of an alternate energy is quoted, see, it's not anything which is already there or implemented. It is under discussion, which is, if you see the DISCOM rates or BESCOM rates are quite expensive than the negotiated alternate energy prices. So it is an advantage for the producer to go for an alternate energy and have an advantage of green power. So already few industries are already started discussions, but it is not yet. I have not heard any conclusion.
Answering the same like you have mentioned the energy costs. Many like Malaysia has, as of my knowledge, Malaysia has around 2 rupees of energy cost comparing with the India, which is quite lower. So don't you think so? Like it will be a more competitive price than India, and it will be a disadvantage for Indian producers as well. Like Malaysia has, like UAE has, they have much lower cost electricity cost than we are right now we have.
Firstly, all my co-producers should understand one thing: Malaysia is a green energy.
Okay.
They are on a idle power.
Okay.
So the production of their energy is green energy. They don't have to buy or shift their power requirement to any other alternate energy.
Okay.
But whereas the Indian producers who are producing all their ferroalloys or steel are producing on a conventional thermal power or very small portion which is coming from BESCOM, we don't know is idle or not. So Malaysia will always be competitive. They are competitive, and they will have an advantage of green energy also. Today, Malaysia has advantage on power, but they do have some disadvantages on other raw material. For example, their labor costs are expensive. Their fuel reductant costs are expensive. So we have our indigenous reductant also. We blend indigenous reductant with imported coke or coal. So it's not a big advantage, but yes, there is an advantage.
Thank you, sir.
Right. So with that, we come on to the last segment of our panel discussion, which is on prices, the price outlook for Q1 2024. Starting with Patil sir, what is your take on the outlook on Indian domestic manganese ore prices for Jan to March 2024?
Madam, during this month we have reduced the prices, you are aware. So in next month, depending on the market, will be good. And I think suppose demand will be remain same, because as per our data, still is increasing, consumption is increasing. I don't think the price will go down. It will
Just a
sustain.
follow. Yeah, just a follow-up question, sir, on that. Which all factors do you see are driving the Indian manganese ore prices?
Which one?
Which all factors do you feel are key drivers for Indian manganese ore prices or oil price decision?
Madam, there are various factors on which oil prices are depends. Depending demands, and availability, production. We are considering a lot of factors, not the price of international prices. So, depending on that time, we will take it.
Right. Mr. Jain, any comment from you for the price outlook?
As far as manganese ore prices are concerned, I agree with Patil that prices will remain stable or slightly downward. It will not decrease much. Now, it's not the question for the producers that the manganese ore prices come down. It is a question for them whether they'll be able to increase the alloy prices. So their sustainability depends on their sales price. Now, even if, for example, if I talk, the manganese ore prices reduced by 50 cents, it will not matter much for them on their costing perspective. Once the manganese ore prices are reduced, immediately it is a pressure on sales prices. That price, the consumer comes and asks, your ore prices have reduced, I will not buy on this price. So it's good in the interest of the industry that prices remain stable.
Hello?
And the producers push for a higher alloy prices for the survival of the industry.
आएंगे बैठेंगे खाएंगे और निकलेंगे फटाफट
Sir, one more question. Sorry, ma'am, to interrupt. One more question from my side. Like, magnesium prices, if we see stable, and many of the manufacturer we are into market, so spoke to them, and they feel like the magnesium prices are stable in the same position. It would be very hard for them to survive in the market with the current cost of production, because magnesium demand is also not so much in domestic. So, what's your opinion, sir? Like, how the small market of ferroalloys will survive in this segment of magnesium prices?
That's what I said to you. They have to push the prices of alloy higher. See, it gives them a support for increasing their prices because magnesium prices are not reduced. So they can, if the ore prices are reduced immediately, it is passed on. So ultimately, the producer is not holding anything, and his profitability or losses remains the same. So now it is purely a demand thing which has to come. The consumption has to increase. The now export demand has to pick up. And prices have to move up. In last 10-15 days, there is an uptick in price movement. With the cutbacks in southern states and certain plants in West Bengal have also closed due to non-viability. And with all these messages going into the market, there is a uptick of about $40-50 in the market.
And so these prices are accepted in the overseas market because
Yeah. Yes, I am talking overseas market only. So earlier people were able to have sold their 65 silcomanganese in the range of 830, 35. Today people are achieving 880, 890 and talking 900. So it's a good sign. So they have to hold on to that.
thank you, sir.
It's their break-even cost. It's not even their break-even cost.
Thank you, sir.
So they went below their break-even cost
Yes.
in anticipation that markets will improve.
Mr. Jain, as you mentioned that the silicomanganese export prices have risen very recently. So, is it the EU demand comeback, or that's a push from some other countries as well?
It's not only Indian producers bleeding at these numbers. It's across the globe. All the producers are bleeding. No one is able to manufacture at these numbers. But they are forced to, they cannot just simply shut down or retrench the people and go for a closure, temporary closure or something like that. So everyone is pushing for a higher price.
And
That's
Mr.
my understanding.
Yes.
That's purely my understanding with the people whom I am talking or understanding from.
So that's a push from the European side, mostly, that they have accepted these offers, and any other country that Indian exporters are also looking for these high numbers.
They are offering at higher numbers. They are not offering at a lower number. Today there is nothing available at 830, 840 in the market. So which was sold at 15 days back, today it is at 880, 890. And that too, if someone wants to go for a big volume, naturally prices will jump.
Right. All right. So before we wrap up this session, any closing remarks, Mr. Patil, that you would like to give and share it with our audience?
See, in the production of alloys, ferroalloys, the contribution of manganese was around 35% and around 35-36% is electricity cost. So both are the major costing for the production of alloys. See, manganese ore is not only the factor, but you have to think. You have to think for energy factor also. Suppose energy factor prices comes down. Already oil prices are, you see in your presentation you have told us manganese prices are lower, means it has compared to last 3 years. It's lower, but energy cost has increased. So not only manganese ore prices, we have to think for alternative source for energy. Means that will cover up the cost and always will be at competitive prices.
Right. Mr. Jain, anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, just replying to Rahul that a lot of people are expecting manganese ore prices to come down for their survival. So I also agree with Mr. Patil that as manganese ore contributes 35-36% of their alloy cost, and if it is being even reduced by 10%, it doesn't make any what do you say, any significant contribution at current prices. And if you see the reduction of imported manganese ore prices in current scenario of higher grade, I don't see a major cutback coming up. Yes, there may be 3-4%, maybe by pressure 5% here and there, I don't say, but largely it is stable. Even people planning for their next quarter production or a price guidance for themselves, the manganese ore prices will remain stable, and people have to see that the alloy prices are increased. And energy cost, the governments or discoms have to think for ferroalloy industry that these energy cost ferroalloys cannot sustain. Higher energy cost cannot be sustained.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. So
Thank you. Thank you
a
very
lot
much.
amount of key takeaways from this session. MOIL targeting 1.8 million tons manganese ore in this fiscal and about 3.5 million tons going ahead in 2030. In case of imports, we expect the import volumes in entire FY24 to remain largely stable, or maybe a small reduction in the next quarter may be seen. Again, vessel freight rates is something that we need to watch out for because they have risen quite sharply in last 1 month. And then we also talked about the Indian demand for manganese ore to increase and reach to about 11 million tons by 2030. And of course, after the domestic production, the remaining would be fed from the imports. And mine block auctions, although the domestic players are eyeing for newer blocks, but again, the resumption of operations at these blocks may take some time for the clearances, which may take again 3 years of time. Prices, export prices from India have risen recently, and as our speakers mentioned, that prices look supportive, and probably we do not see much correction from these current levels. So that is all that we had discussed in this panel discussion of today. Thank you so much to both of you, Mr. Jain and Mr. Patil, for joining in this panel discussion. Very big thank you to our audience for joining in. Thanks Rahul for co-hosting this webinar with me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much everyone, and goodbye.
Thank you.